get this to him. Okay.
Welcome to Eye on the Illini Central Postgame. This is Mike Kegley, and I'm here with Brad Sturdy and Jonathan Kerr. Folks, we have had an incredible game today. Brad, why don't you put it into a little bit of a context?
Well, I said before the game, early in the first half, it was whoever had the ball last. It turned to be accurate, right? I just think they couldn't get enough. It was just a team play where they couldn't get stops, but offensively, they were fantastic. All the stuff about the offensive line and their ability to control the USC defensive line was true. They did a great job. They got so much push up front. Fagan ran hard. I thought Valentine ran hard. If you take away two fumbles, and one of them may not have been a fumble, on the 1 yard line, this is a 2-touchdown win. So you got to look at the positive, but defensively they have to get better.
So, Mr. Kerr, what did you see in the second half that made the difference in the game?
Well, I point to one play that led, in my opinion, to another one. And the play in the third quarter, Illinois is going into the south end zone. Altmaier gets basically broken in two on the sack. Glad he got up. They flushed him good, though. Great job by the offense and Looney, the offensive coordinator, because if you watch, and I'd have to go back and watch it myself, but I'm almost positive on that little release that Fagan caught and ran about 60 yards, that was the same exact formation. They brought that corner. Fagan was wide open, great blocking on the perimeter on the outside, and Fagan ran for a touchdown on that play. I thought that was extremely great counter coaching on the run. I thought that I have notes on here that was basically one of the huge plays of the game where they were able to basically figure that scheme out. They kept the same formation thinking that the blitz was going to come, and it did. The offensive line, again, they held true. I think they came in there feeling pretty upset about themselves, embarrassed, all of the above. And they came out and they put a hat on a hat. They had great combination blocks. They got up to the second level. Kudos to them. You say what you want about the defense. USC has put a lot of numbers on people for the last 2 or 3 years. You could always say that their defense has been suspect in the last couple of years. Maybe it's still suspect. It's hard to say right now. But, that USC and Riley, they're going to score points, and they're going to continue to score points. I think they got some great talent and a great coach. So despite the 2 fumbles, like Brad said, maybe one didn't happen, maybe one wasn't true. Great win. It's a great rebound win.
Yeah, and it was really interesting the way the Illini kept coming back. They went each time they had the opportunity. They came back after the USC looked like they maybe just change the game around and getting the momentum. Brad, what did you see in this team that has made them be able to come back with confidence and doing it the week after they played in the disastrous Indiana game?
It's really kind of crazy if you think about it. It's one of those things where the ability to bounce back is the sign of a good team, and they did it. I mean, they were so humiliated last week at Indiana. To be able to come back less than a week later, and they competed. I mean, even some of those plays, you got to give Maeva credit for his ability to make some third down, fourth down throws that were just really impressive, and they made some plays. So, but Illinois still found a way to bounce back every time they took a kind of a gut punch. They were able to respond, and overall, this is the difference between, and Jonathan can attribute this or talk about this too. As a football player, you don't have time to worry about the week. You got to get ready for the next game. As fans, people sit around and they have a week to complain about the last game, you know what I mean, and focus on it. You got to get ready for the next one, or else you're going to get your butt kicked twice. So this is just one of those things where I think this is a sign of a team that is older and veteran and able to show that they have some resilience. And the reality is they're right where they need to be. They're 4-1 and they're heading into a game against Purdue. They should win. If you can get 5-1 in your first 6, you're still in a good spot. You're probably going to be ranked in the top 25 still, or maybe even top 20, and see what happens in a couple weeks against Ohio State.
Any thoughts on that, Jonathan?
No, I really agree with you. A game like this, I think says a lot about, yes, it was at home. Yes, it was homecoming. Yes, you had Fox Sports here, all of the above. But this was a game that Illinois had to show up and show what they were made of, and they did. And again, you could say that, like what it appeared to be, the team that had the ball last was going to win. I'd be curious to keep an eye on USC offensively anyway, and maybe even defensively. I think USC is going to do this to a lot of teams. And I think Illinois at times showed that they got some good pressure. I think that's a hell of a quarterback. I think that receiver is every bit as advertised. And kudos to Lincoln Riley. He picked on 2 backup cornerbacks for both of those touchdowns in the last 2 touchdowns. Lovett Jr. and who was it?
I think it was Heckle.
Yeah, out of Heckle. Now, say what you want about the fact that maybe we're going to be continued to be exposed in the secondary. But let's see if we play an offense better than this USC offense. I think that's what I'd be surprised if we did. Again, I don't watch much film every week, but this was a great comeback win. They deserved it. Good for them.
To that point, Jonathan, they came in, what are they averaging, 52 points a game or something like that. So this is a really good offense. And, we saw Matthew Bailey not out there. Now he came out, he has a tackle for loss and a fumble recovery on the first possession, right? And then he's not playing the entire second half. He's on the sideline without his helmet on. So that's a big part of that defense that wasn't out there again. And so you just feel like you're always dinged up. You get Clark back and now Bailey's out. And so it's like if they can get healthy, this team's going to be a lot better.
I agree.
Yeah, and the other thing I thought was really interesting is, what did you guys think of the way they used quick hitting passes, used the threat of Luke running, and then also mixed that in with the run instead of this, let's just run the ball to set everything up? Jonathan?
Yeah, well said. I think it kept their base defense just honest enough. When Luke would either go to the 3-step and throw, he'd run it up the middle. He did enough things to keep himself elusive so that for the most part during that game, you saw USC stay in basically that 4-man front. Again, we keep circling back to what allowed Illinois to move the ball. You had that bowling ball, Fagan, he's not getting touched until he's in the second level. We hadn't seen that all year. And it looks like offensively anyway, correct me if I'm wrong, it looks like we came out of that game healthy. I don't know if we had anyone who really got dinged or anything like that.
Yeah, you're right. And also you got Bowick back, and Justin Bowick makes a big play, and he coming off of his injury. Hank Beatty was obviously Hank Beatty again, and Hank is he was a little dinged up at Indiana after one of the first 2 plays. So you see you got your guys out there making plays, and I think that's really important on the offensive side of the ball as well. Now Luke Altmaier, I mean, that hit he took, you were talking about that hit he took. I thought he was going to get cut in half. he got drilled, but he bounces right back and takes it, finishes. Altmaier 20 of 26, 328 yards, 2 touchdowns. Also ran 5 times for 28 yards and a touchdown. He's the first Illinois quarterback to run, throw, and catch a touchdown pass in the same game since Kurt Kittner in the 1999 Micron PC Bowl. So that's pretty good stuff.
I think I vaguely remember he caught one, and didn't Kittner catch the ball in that bowl game, and he threw the ball about 40 yards up in the air into the stands.
Yeah, he did.
I think in that game.
That was Virginia, right? Was that Virginia? They beat him like 63-21 or something like that, if I recall.
I'm just kind of looking over my notes. What a great catch by Dixon on that long run. You're yelling while he's running. If he could just high step it, just one more step.
One more step. Yeah.
And then of course, how about it in the first half and the second half? The 2 biggest passing plays of the game, arguably, one of which is Beatty.
That sideline catch was fantastic.
It's a Sports Center. You can make the argument that it's a Sports Center throw and it's a Sports Center catch, and neither one of those great, huge plays in the passing game resulted in scores because both of those were on the possessions of the
fumbles. Yeah,
fumbles. So, no, a lot to be proud of. That's a very good team. It'll remain to see how good of a team they are defensively, because I think that's been the rub. Correct me if I'm wrong on Lincoln Riley's team so far in LA, is that they don't seem to stop anyone. But who knows?
Based on what we saw with the preview, there was a high expectation for the pass rush of USC to be able to do a lot more, and really they had the one cleaning the clock of poor Mr. Altman. But beyond that, they didn't do much. I thought that was probably one of the big differences in this game.
Had a lot of good 5-on-4. Again, when USC was only bringing 4, they flushed the pocket. They pressed the pocket well on the inside, which was a step up. I don't know. I mean, it's sometimes you just have to get roasted in the paper, and then not in the paper. These guys read papers, but in social media, I think they just came out and said, F this, we're gonna show what we're made of. And then you combine the fact that it's homecoming and it's a big USC game. I may have said it in the pregame or the halftime. In games like this, a lot of players will play better, or teams will play better than maybe they actually are as a whole, when you have so many emotional type things leading up into a game. And if they can show that they need to bring the intensity of every week, easier said than done. I think Nick Saban is an example of that, how he would coach harder when they would play the directional schools, because by default it's harder to get players up. Any player in their right mind in a game like this. Who do we got next week?
Purdue, at Purdue.
Okay, well, I mean that game's proven never to be easy.
Yeah, exactly. I think you're exactly right. I think I talked about it on one of the post-game shows or pre-game shows of talking about how when you know you're going to win, you have a different mindset as a coach, because they know they're going to win too. And you see it on all levels. You see it in the pros. You see it in college. You coach your children. Watch your children play. It happens on all levels. And that's why. It's what makes the human body the human body. Jonathan, do you have just going forward on defense? Would you have some concerns about the defense? Although I thought today they used a kind of a bend but don't break philosophy, trying to allow USC to make mistakes, and it worked a couple times. And through really till the end, USC had 10 points with only a couple minutes to go in the third quarter, but it wasn't like they really didn't do a great job of getting stops. They gave up another big 490 yards. It was very hard for them to get off the field on third down, and I think at one point they had converted 12 of their 13 third and fourth downs combined, because if they didn't make it on third down, they would make it on fourth down. So when they went for it, I think they were 3 of 4, or 4 or 5 on fourth down. I think. Let me look exactly, but it was like it's pretty wild when you think how good. Yeah, they were 4 or 5 on fourth down and 8 of 14 on thirds, but that means they converted 12 out of their 12 of those chances out of the 14 third downs that they had. So that's pretty good when you think about it. So is there concerns defensively?
Like I said, I think part of that, like you said, they had held them to 10 minutes or to 10 points in that game. They had punched one out in the plus territory on the first drive of the game. A really good athletic interception by I forget his name, our linebacker.
Oh, Rosiak.
You got to be careful. I'm going to rewatch this game. It looked like it looks like Henry was in good position with a lot of run defensive formations defensively, and USC got their yards. I mean, we talked about it at the halftime. That field was heating up in the second half. You saw some tired people on defense there in the second half in that game. You got to pick your poison as to where you're going to bring the blitz. I thought they got good enough. They had an intentional grounding on USC. I thought they had brought good pressure on there. But it's kind of like playing Russian roulette when you're playing against a gunslinger like that and an offense that's very potent. So 30, what's our final score? 34-32.
Yep.
That'll probably never go into the record books as defensive performance, but I thought there was enough there at times that made the quarterback throw time.
Yeah, I will say I was actually impressed with some of his throws. I mean, he made a couple throws into traffic, you can tell why he's such a highly regarded guy. He did such a good job of throwing into some tight windows, and some of them were even on the move, or under pressure as he's getting hit, and he made some really nice throws. That's why I think their offense is going to be continue to be good. I don't think their defense is just like we talked about. I don't think their defense is good enough, despite the fact they have a pretty good defensive line. They have getting to the quarterback. Illinois negated that, and then they couldn't really. The Illinois offensive line was able to get push, and so I just don't think USC has the defense, but I do think they're going to continue to score a lot of points. And that's
well, and one of the other things I pointed out is I thought Illinois really brought a lot of very good physicality today on the defensive side of the ball. In fact, at number 85, their tight end who was involved in for a while, when he got the commentators on Fox made mention, I thought he got stuck pretty good on a play where he kind of got up walking crooked. I don't know how much he was involved in after that, but there were some plays that I thought, Illinois really played some emotional, hearted defense. And again, I think not always going to show up to the casual viewer because I think we're repeating ourselves over and over. USC is a good offensive team, but there's going to be some sore players tomorrow, and it should be. I mean, this is a great college. I mean, a great game for Illinois, and I think we're maybe just turning the corner as to being able to talk about games that we're winning like this.
Yeah.
I mean, instead of the knife in the back at the end, which it looked like was happening there with the fumble into the end zone. But yeah,
it did. That was the one. I think to a person, we thought USC was going to score once they fumbled it. So I mean, we're all sitting right. They're going to score, right? If you look at the running backs, I thought overall they ran 35 times, 171 yards. Lawfrey had 7 carries. Valentine had 8. Fagan had 14. I thought the running backs did a nice job. You also had Valentine had a catch down there on that drive. Fagan had the big 64-yard touchdown catch. So I thought the running backs actually played well. I thought they were better at handling the blocking too. I do think having Lawfrey back there does help with those types of things. I think he's really good at that. So I thought the running backs were good. I think I thought the receivers did a nice job. There wasn't really any drops And I thought Luke Altmaier was really efficient. So offense, I was very happy. The one thing, again, but special teams, Alano hit a 62-yarder pregame. I'm watching. So he's got plenty of leg. It's pretty impressive to have I think it's pretty valuable to have a kicker who you can rely on in that situation. Bielema had no doubt that they were going to make that field goal. I mean, he knew that David Alano was the guy who's going to come in there and has the ability to kick it deep and make that play.
Wind was not a factor today, was it?
Not really. Very light wind.
There's a windmill that we can see from here. I can actually see the stadium from our dealership, the top of it anyway. But there's a windmill just west of there, and that thing was not moving at all today. So it didn't look like wind was going to be an issue. One little comment going back to the Fagan. Was it officially 64 yards? The catch where they brought the blitz to the open side of the field and over there. You look back on the replay and there's a referee running right down the line of scrimmage or right down the sideline with Fagan. Thank God this wasn't an NFL game that had maybe 5 or 6 more cameras. But if that play on the field is called out of bounds, it's going to stay out of bounds. It was what we were at the mercy of whatever that referee called. And they're just, you kind of had a feeling watching the replays that there was nothing good that was going to overturn it. And I don't think there was really a view that showed it really what it was. We're talking, pebbles.
Yeah, interestingly, I've since it happened when it was live, like we could not, live watching here at the stadium, we couldn't really see a great replay of the Fagan fumble too on the goal line, and it looked like I did get an angle, like a close-up angle from the backside later that showed that he had hit his back and then the ball kind of popped up. But that's a really tough thing to come through. Did you get to see that?
I that's one of the few plays today that I wasn't. I was actually heading over from my desk over here to a different area of the showroom, and that's when that happened. And I was trying to get set up. But that sounds like another one that the call on the field is going to stand when you're dealing with trying to deal with all the masses of humanity all in a pile. And you're trying to. I think the refs didn't want to get in the way of whatever was called. If it wasn't a call to fumble, it probably would have stayed not a fumble, right?
Yep, I agree.
One sack by the offensive line was that the play that I think led. That in my opinion led to that 64-yard short catch and long run.
Is it? Do you? So again, you've been around the game for a long time, right? With the, and you talk about the fumbles. What do they need to do to shore up the fumbles there on the goal line? Because you really can't. That's obviously something you can't do, right?
Well, I can tell you the number of times that I practiced the punch-out drill as an offensive lineman here, which is big fat 0. It does appear that play, or those type of techniques are practiced more and more and more. You can make the argument that the hand just happened to be there, but I think Devin Hester, not Devin Hester, who was the Chicago Bear that made that?
Tillman. Peanut Tillman.
I think he made it sexy. Where like, hey, why don't we coach this? I tell you what, I'm sure. But I said going into that last drive, you got to imagine what you'd heard on the sideline or during the timeouts with what the coaches were saying. So,
now Lawrence Taylor is going to get mad at you because he thinks he's the one who invented that.
Oh, is that right? Well, then it's got to be true if Lawrence Taylor.
So they're going into the Purdue game. What are you telling this team to take away from this victory to apply next week?
Brad, you wanna?
Yeah, I think for me, it's like you just execute. It all comes down to execution, and I think you played a really talented team, and you executed well enough. I thought the offense was fantastic today. They had they scored on all but 3 drives, and 2 of them they fumbled on the 1-yard line. They punted once. I mean, the offensive execution was excellent. I thought they did a great job there. Now the defensive execution was good at times. I thought they really didn't. They only had the one big play, and it was on that trick play. They got called back, right, for the legal man downfield. But they really just, they got to, the one-on-one matchups. You got to win some more one-on-ones, I think. And maybe that's just getting healthy. But I do think it's just executing. It's making sure it's not missing tackles. I thought the other thing down on that last drive, you noticed they kept getting a few more yards on those carries that were getting 3 yards. Now they're getting 6 yards because the missed tackle or things like that. So I think that a lot of it's just execution. And if they can execute better, then, it can slow Purdue down. Obviously, Purdue does not have the offensive firepower that USC has. So if you come out and play a good game, you're going to have a chance to keep them fewer points. But Purdue probably, doesn't have the defensive firepower that USC has either. So you got to be able to score. So I think you just focus on execution and make sure they understand the importance of that game, because it really is a key game on the season. You cannot afford to lose that game heading into a tough stretch, with Ohio State and Washington.
Yeah. I think it backs up what the coaches preach to them all week, and then they can go into their meetings this week and say, it's not just a bunch of talking points. He goes, we believe in you. You believe in yourself. This was a game to, kind of take a step back and go, yeah, you guys are good enough to win a game like this. I was talking to some guys at work who were kept, some Illinois haters, and who said, they'll let. Indiana put 53 up on them last week. And I said, if Indiana and Illinois played 10 times this year, do you really think Illinois would lose 63-10 all 10 times? Now, you could make the argument that Indiana's a better team than Illinois. I think they're very well coached and they got very good personnel. But Illinois is not a 53-point worse team than Indiana. All hell broke loose, and once it was like it went from a rescue mission to a recovery mission at halftime. At that game there, I think it just validates the point that I always remember. It's funny how certain things you remember from what your coaches would say, and I remember John Makovic used to say this a lot. He'd be like, I believe he'd always say it in the pregame speech in the team meeting. He would say, you got to understand that in a game like this, where you got 2 heavyweights, you're going to have, you have to expect and realize that there are going to be extreme emotional and momentum swings, and it's like, you have to expect them to happen. He goes, because in a game like this, you got to be prepared for them. And by being prepared for them, you have to realize that, bad things are going to happen. It's how you respond to them. And Jesus, you want to look at today's game in terms of talking about momentum swings. Both of those end zone fumbles, whether they both were or not, those are huge momentum swings. I mean, how about the razzle dazzle by USC because he had a center that floated 2 to 3 yards downfield? What if that play doesn't go south for them? I mean, there's a lot of, the thing I always would say is that, in closely matched up games, there's usually about 2 or 3 plays that will determine a game. How did 2 or 3 plays go? And they go one way or they go the other. Those determine the game. So,
Jonathan, we watched the center based on what you had talked about at halftime, and he did have a high snap that led to an incomplete pass right after the half. So it did make a difference. Those little tiny things, and one more completion, maybe this game is a little different.
Yeah. Little things, but
it is. It's always details, right? I mean, it's just little things. And the one thing defensively, the one thing I didn't like was, and I wonder why teams, I'm not trying to give a scouting report, but why do they sub? Like, because Illinois slows the game down with that. When they sub, they can rotate their defensive linemen. And when they just line up, and it seems like Illinois is struggling to get the play call in defensively and the coverage in whatever they're doing. And like, I think if they play with tempo, really has given Illinois some trouble this year. But when they sub, it really slows the game down, allows Illinois to get those guys in, and also it slows the game down overall. I mean, Illinois really played a game that was more like a Wisconsin Bo Ryan basketball game, or Bill Carmody at Northwestern. They run 25 seconds of shot clock before they start. You know what I mean?
Offense, right?
Yeah, exactly. Spread it out as run some clock before you play, and that's what Illinois is trying to do. I mean, get the and a lot of it's on defense, but I think it slows the game down. Fewer possession game where USC can't. They didn't want to track meet with USC where it's just up and down and throwing it 70 or 63 to 56 or something like that. Well, it still ended up 34-32. But so I don't know why.
It's funny you say that, because there was a play where USC was running hurry up for a short stretch of time, and I think it was on their third play in a row, and their entire offensive line was gassed. Because I could only look back, when we would try to run 2-minute offense, and that was the only time you really ran up tempo back then, right? Big 330-pound guys aren't used to running 3 plays in a minute. And there was the third play. I'd have to go back and watch it, where one of the linemen just barely could get out of his stance, and I think USC had to throw it away. So I don't know if USC's line is necessarily conditioned to run fast tempo. And again, on a day like today, the starting temperature was probably 72, and it ended at probably around 84, 85.
Yeah, it was warm. Even before the game, down on the field, it was pretty warm on that turf. I would say I was down there standing there, and that sun was really bright. I couldn't see Mike, which was not a bad thing. I'm sitting just down from me.
Yeah, that hurts.
Hey, let me ask you a real quick question. The game on TV didn't give the feeling of how loud it was there. Was it a good crowd? Was it a good loud?
I thought they were really into it until they were obviously they were a little deflated a couple times, and it went from really excited to really quiet. After you go from the Dixon play where he almost scores to the fumble, and you went from just people going nuts after the Dixon play to just almost a morgue for a second. But I thought the crowd was really good. It was a sellout again. I'm sure not every seat was filled, but it was a really nice crowd. I thought at the end, even there were still a lot of people left and watching that last drive.
Yeah, and the other thing, I think there was a bunch of people who were like, thank goodness they scored and gave Illinois time for their offense to score, because there was a lot of confidence in what the Illini offense could do. One of the things I wanted to talk about real quick is for our Illini fans, get ready. The wait's almost over. DraftKings Sportsbooks, America's top-rated sportsbook app, is coming to the Show Me State, and you can sign up today. New Missouri customers get $300 bonus bets when we launch on December 1st. Download now and place a $5 bet when we go live. DraftKings Sportsbook brings everything you need to elevate your game day, including live in-game betting, lightning fast payouts, and endless ways to get into the action, all right on your phone. And when we go live in Missouri, you'll be betting with the sportsbook trusted by millions, safe, secure, and fast money withdrawals. Download DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use STL Sports to grab $300 in bonus bets with just a $5 bet when we go live on December 1st. That's code STL Sports in partnerships with DraftKings Sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 21 plus, physically present in Missouri. Eligibility restrictions apply. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Excludes customers who redeem pre-launch sign-up offer. And terms are all at sportsbook.com, DraftKings.com/promos.
I don't know if I can handle. If I had $300 at the end of that game, I'm not sure I could handle it. $300 there. I don't know. Maybe not 300, but maybe 3,000. I'd be really scared. No, it's but no, I think Illinois over the last couple of years, you have to kind of look at this team as being able to win. They've run a ton of close games. That's something we haven't really talked about. I mean, their ability to win down the stretch. As you look at last year's schedule and you see a team that won close games. They won the bowl game, obviously. At the end was one, but they also they won. It started off with that. I think it was the Kansas win last year that kind of set the tone, right? For winning the games that were tough, and the Rutgers comeback was huge, right? The Purdue, where they looked like they were going to roll and then had to come back down the stretch. You look at they win that one. The Nebraska can win at Nebraska last year, close game. A lot of games where they just found a way to win, which is I think a kind of a testament to the culture here. And so they find another way to win a close game, and that's where you kind of. I was actually talking to one of the Illinois coaches kind of before down on the field, and we just got to weather the storm early, and then they'll be fine, because they thought they could win down the stretch with Luke Altmaier and the special teams and different things like that, because they thought USC would come out and try and pick on a lot of things that they would see on film that happened against Indiana, and it seemed right. I mean, they weathered that early storm, and then they were able to get a chance to win the game at the end, which is, I think, I feel really confident with Luke Altmaier having the ball in his hands at the end of the football game, because he seems to make right decisions in the fourth quarter, and that's the sign of a pretty good quarterback.
Those are great points, Brad, about the more times that you can win games like that, right? Illinois had 4 or 5 games last year that could have been toss-ups. They could have lost them all. They could have won them all, and they won all of them, but was it one? That feeds from within, which I'm sure that team coming out of the locker room today had a much more positive idea that they could play with these guys. We were talking about it before the game, Mike. There's probably a lot of people in the stands. Yeah, they're excited that Fox is here and it's homecoming, and there's REO Speedwagon. By the way, how was that? Did that work out good with REO?
They're old, man. They are old.
Did they wheel them out in time for the halftime show?
Yeah, they had walkers and wheelchairs, man. I don't know.
They're old when Brad starts teasing them about being old.
Yeah, they are old. That's right. Yeah. Right. So it's funny. Speaking, my brother's 10 years older than me, and he was talking about, I remember when I watched them when they were young.
Yeah, they are. They're all white hair and everything. Yeah. But I think there was a lot of people at the beginning of the game, fan-wise, that were just like, okay, what are we going to get after a game like this? And I think there's probably more resolution inside that locker room than a lot of fans might think, because if you're a long-suffering Illinois football fan, let's face it, we've had the lights turned out on us many times, and so we're still getting used to games like this.
And Luke has a nice touchdown to interception ratio. When you keep the interception at 0, it really looks good.
That works. That
is the key. I mean, he doesn't have an interception this year, so that's impressive. He's caught more touchdown passes than he's thrown interceptions. So that's a good thing.
Yeah. Now you both realize that if he has a bad day next week and throws a couple, that you guys personally just jinxed him into throwing some interceptions. But
no, Jonathan, you for bringing that up jinxed him.
Well, let's clear the area. He's perfect.
And of course, we didn't mention, but Jonathan is broadcasting live from Sarah Champagne. So if you want to buy a car or two, you can go see him right after this and get a heck of a deal.
An hour and 20 minutes left here. So
yeah. Good
so
thing. I actually bought a car from Jonathan a few years ago, so
that's right.
So he does a good job. Took care of me. So actually, it's my wife. So even more important. But hey, I do want to mention Malik Elzy has left the program. I don't know. Bielema confirmed that he is no longer with the program. Elzy wanted a red shirt, and Bielema basically said, I think it'd be better if you sit out the rest of the season. Then, so yeah, and we see.
Nobody's talked to Ked. Is Ked okay?
Yeah.
That was Ked's official player of the Fighting Illini.
Yep. Yes, that's interesting, I think, but it makes sense. I mean, there was when you look at the guys and the way they're playing on the outside, I think it probably would, it was time, and I preserve after plays more than 4 games, then he's out, so another year. So I get it. I understand from his perspective. I also understand what Bielema is thinking from his perspective, and he said, we felt like we have a strong roster, and if he didn't want to be part of that, then that's fine. But the interesting thing is his mention that Sabor Kareem had a similar choice, and he chose to play, and he was on the field a lot today, and I thought he played really well. He was one of the bright spots on the defense. So sometimes it's just a matter of plugging along and keeping your nose to the grindstone and letting it happen.
So what we will do now is we'll wrap up our coverage. This was a heck of a victory for the Illini, one that was something that people didn't know what to expect. And when it came down to it, they were able to both take a couple hits and come back, and also USC at least managed to make Kurt Signetti look pretty smart.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good win. This is, Aaron Henry said, in his presser this week, he said, nobody died. We're going to be fine. And he was right. I mean, they're still 5-1, or they still have a chance to go 5-1 in their first 6 next week. And even if you're 5-2 after the Ohio State game heading into your bye week, you got to feel pretty good. That's a good start. That's a good season. I mean, are you going to win the national title? No, but did we really think we're going to win the national title before the year started? I mean, you were hoping maybe you have a chance to eke into the playoff, and that probably means you got to win every game, but except for down the stretch here. Maybe you could lose to Ohio State and have a chance, but I doubt it. But reality is, if this football program can back up last year's season with another 8 or 9 win season, that's exactly what you want, and that starts building, your street cred, and helps in recruiting, helps in the transfer portal, and so I think that they're in a good spot. And he was right, that nobody died. They're going to be all right, and you just got to focus on the next game. You can only win or lose one game every week. You can't lose more or win more than that. So each week you just try and win the one in front of you.
Yeah. Last week definitely felt like putting 3 in the loss column, but you're right. It only counts as one. And I'll say this, let's say we don't win 10 games this year. Let's say we win 8 or win 9. Technically, was it a step back from a win total? Yeah. But when was the last time that an Illinois program, if we win 8 or 9, we got people that are feeling disappointed? That's a different level of expectations for the program. It's kind of like Iowa there for a while. They were getting sick of winning 7, 8, 9 games, and then they were talking about firing Kirk Ferentz. It's like, okay, slow yourself down. You're Iowa. 8, 9 wins, 7, 8, 9 wins is going to be just fine. But now at the age of NIL, I mean, you can point to what Indiana's doing right now. You can flip the switch awfully fast in some circumstances. So dollar coming in. So. Mike.
Hey, Jonathan, can you address Brad P has a question. Did the offense change up their blocking scheme this week at all? Did you see anything there?
I thought changing things up, I didn't necessarily see. What I saw was movement on the defensive line, which allowed them to get up to the second level. They were able to come off their double team or combination blocks to the linebacker level 2 yards on the other side of the line of scrimmage versus how it was, just the opposite going into this game. So, I thought they ran some good angles at times. But no, I mean, I probably wrote it down on my stats over and over. Fagan falling forward, 4 or 5 yards, 5, 6 yards. Once you start doing that by halftime, it's going to continue to work, and it did. Like I said, I think especially with the people getting tired and whatnot.
Yep. All right. Well, hey, thanks for joining us here on the Illini Guys postgame show here on St. Louis Sports Central. Jonathan Kerr, Mike Cagley was here part-time. He was in and out with some technical difficulties, but I appreciate Jonathan. Thanks for coming on, and
Awesome.
hopefully
Appreciate
a huge win for the Illini, 34-32 on the last second field goal from David Alano. They moved to 4-1 on the season. They'll go to Purdue next weekend with the chance to start 5-1, and move to 2-1 in the Big Ten as we kind of look at those Big Ten standing as well. So once again, thanks for joining us, and go Illini.